Sometimes, something that you wished for comes into the world with such accuracy that you can't help but wonder if Discord really is selling the recordings of your conversations. Because if I had $1 for every time I've wished out loud that CIG would just make a ship that actually looked like a scrappy bunch of survivors slag welded a gaggle of crash ships together in order to get off of Monarchs, well, then I'd have enough to pledge that very same ship. Citizens, my name's Beard of Oz, and today I'll be looking at the Gray's Market Shiv. I'll go over its specs, its gorgeously rusty appearance, and whether or not it's more than just a pretty little onboarding task that you'll own for a week, then subsequently melt to buy something else to keep the emptiness at bay. Alright, let's dive in. As one of 3 obligatory please give us more money offerings from CIG in their year of gullibility, playability, the Gray's Market Shiv is the one that makes the most and least sense in terms of where they sit in the verse. Nestled between the Anvil Paladin, the ship that unceremoniously dethroned the Redeemer, a multi-crew gunship that will most likely be flown solo, and the Asperia Stinger, the alien reflection of the F-8C Lightning, yet another overpowered ship slowly shuffling its way towards the nerf gallows, comes the Not Drake Cutlass. Listed as a heavy fighter, yet lacking some of the alleged hallmarks that CIG have attributed to this wishy-washy, easily overpowered class. It's almost as if CIG doesn't even know what a heavy fighter is supposed to be, but more on that later. So let's get the specs out of the way. Based on the chassis of the Drake Cutlass Black, the Shiv holds many similar features. In terms of components, it has a single size 2 power plant, 2 size 2 coolers, a single size 2 shield, and a size 2 quantum drive. At the time of recording, these components are not physicalized, much like its chassis mother, and at this point, I'm not even surprised. It has 2 size 4 hardpoints on either side of the cockpit, and the turret on top is saddled with 4 size 3 hardpoints. Out of the box, the size 4s are scrappy ballistic miniguns, and similarly, scrappy set of size 3 laser repeaters for the turret. I'd recommend switching them out at your earliest convenience unless CIG buffs them. The turret can be controlled by a co-pilot, otherwise will be slave to the pilot, at least at the time of this recording, because we all remember the Corsair's first major nerf. The Shiv also boasts a missile arrangement offering 8 size 2 and 8 size 3 missiles, but whenever missile gameplay becomes more consistent. The Shiv also has a cargo grid that will hold 32 SCU of cargo, and none of that nonsense with split areas and 3 stacks high. It'll hold a full 32 SCU container, or whatever combination of smaller sizes that fit within that. But the real draw of the Shiv, at least for myself, are the aesthetics. Built very obviously from the chassis of the recognizable Drake Cutlass, the Shiv loses the front wings to look like every Cutlass Black after a fight in 3.17. The rotating VTOL thrusters are sadly also gone, replaced with what looks like Anvil Asgard thrusters. The ramp entrance at the rear is still the classic Cutlass build, and sadly the only point of entry into the Shiv, with the Cutlass's side doors being removed in favour of chassis-mounted thrusters. Whether or not they act as more than artwork remains to be seen. The external of the cockpit and top of the ship remain almost unchanged from the original chassis, though the turret is no longer manually controlled from within, but rather remotely. The silhouette of the ship now leans between a damaged Cutlass and the Razorback from the Star Wars Mandalorian series. The ramp access panel has switched the buttons with levers, a bold design choice that I'm here for. Moving within the ship brings us to the cargo hold, undoubtedly the most rusted, poorly maintained, barely held together assortment of scrap panels and loose wiring, and I absolutely love it. The sooner CIG brings an assortment of Gray's Market ships to the verse, the happier I'll be, if only marginally. The ramp access panel on the inside is the same as the outside, now with 2 levers, so obviously twice as useful. The cargo grid is on the right-hand side of the hold, and whether or not the components will be accessible and summarily blocked by cargo in here remains to be seen. Unlike the Cutlass Black, the Shiv doesn't come with a ship-mounted tractor beam, so be sure to bring a multi-tool along with you. Moving from the cargo hold to the living quarters through the door brings us to a familiar space. With storage lockers and gun racks, as well as a bunk bed to log out in the black, CIG proved once again that what they did to the Guardian MX and removing the bed was unnecessary and cruel, and they should all be ashamed. Click the card on the screen now to see my totally unbiased review of that ship. The major change in this space, proving that someone in the ship development team has a sense of humor, is the addition of a hygiene station in place of the turret gunner's entrance, now equipped with state-of-the-art bucket and wash basin. The excess of cables around this space is an awesome aesthetic touch, proving that it's not just my streaming station that has the cable management of a drunk polar bear. The pilot seat remains largely unchanged, with the co-pilot seat set behind it, and a slightly modded MFD setup while still primarily Drake, clearly running a version of the software downloaded from 2955's version of uTorrent. The Shiv handles much like you'd expect it to, cutlassy, with a fairly decent boost response. The lack of VTOL makes takeoffs less spectacular, though we won't really feel the loss until the flight model has been properly built in with atmospheric punishments to prevent nose downing. When it comes to combat, the ship still feels cutlassy. At the time of recording, the hull HP count sits around the 34,000 mark, just 5,000 more than the Cutlass Black, and much like the Cutlass Black, you'll see that large flat dinner plate of a torso turn red more often than not. The armaments, depending on how you customize them, are satisfying to use, though the single size 2 power supply will limit your ammo pool should you go full energy weapon. A mixed armament would be a good balance in theory, though until CIG pulls their heads out of their asses and figures out where they want ballistics to sit, it might not be worth your time. I found the attritions and artists to be a nice choice, though I've always been partial to them, and from an aesthetic point of view still suit the ship's appearance, though the looks are rarely a consideration for the majority of players, and fairly so. Moving cargo in the ship is a breeze, and if you're like myself where bulk hauling doesn't bring you joy anymore, having the 32 SCU is good enough should a bounty or scavenge ship hold something of value to collect and sell. The space allows for a gravlev or small vehicle like the Mule, should such traversal be a part of your gameplay loops, or something within the ATLS platform, again, depending on what you're wanting to do. Another factor I'd like to mention, and not one I've really touched on before, is the ship's audio. The electric crackle of the quantum drive makes me feel like it's on the verge of melting down, the rattle of loose metal as I coast through quantum is comforting, and the thrusters, while loud, don't sound like Drake, and only add to the uniquely cobbled together feeling of this Frankenstein's monster of a vessel. An honourable mention to the headlights being green. That was a cool choice, CIG. All in all, on paper, the Shiv isn't breaking new ground or setting a new meta. It's a break away from the conventional, clean and slick brands. Because, even by comparison, Drake is clean. Grey's Market offers something that pyro rats like myself fell in love with after seeing the rotting stations and rusted panels, an aesthetic that isn't for everyone, but is greatly appreciated by those it is for. I hope that this new manufacturer expands their range aggressively so that those of us that crave the janky, broken, rusted and deteriorated have something to call our own. And there you have it, the first in hopefully a long line of Grey's Market ships. I personally didn't have busted ass ships on my Star Citizen Pledge bingo card, but here we are and I'm happier for it. Where do you sit on the brand new really old Shiv? Love it? Hate it? Let me know in the comments section below. If you haven't already, I'd appreciate you liking the video if you learned something new or enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and if you'd like to support the channel a step further, click the join button to become a member. Check out one of the videos here. YouTube thinks it's right up your alley. Stay safe in the verse, citizens, and I'll catch you all next time.